million and 160,000, maybe even potentially 200,000 people succumbing to this. That's with mitigation. In that model, they make full assumption that we continue doing exactly what we're doing, but even better, in every metro area with a level of intensity, because we're hoping that the models are not completely right, that we can do better than what the predictions are. But we're tracking it very closely, and I think there's people around the United States really helping us. Scientists across the country have really given freely of their time to really help us not only model this, but really assure that the American public knows how important it is that they stay doing this. You know, you could see from the recent data, and I'll have Dr. Fauci talk about young people that are being impacted here. We didn't see that the same way in Europe, but our population is about 8 or 9 years young. And so we have to be attentive to all aspects of this, to children, to young people, to adults. We know still the people with pre-existing conditions and the elderly are at particularly high risk, but we don't want to lose any American. And so that's why I think the president came to the conclusion that at a minimum we have to continue what we've been doing, but even better, to every metro area out there, we have to do better. We have to ensure that we're protecting each other. Tony, you want to?
So, at the risk of offending my modeling colleagues, models are good, but models often generate the kind of anxious question that you asked, is how bad could this possibly get? And as I've said many, many times, a model is as good as the assumptions that you put into the model. And very often, many of these assumptions are based on a complexity of issues that aren't necessarily the same, as Dr. Burke said, from one country to the other. So when you give a model, you have the worst extreme, you have the best extreme. Often the worst extreme means that you don't do anything. You just, as we say, let it rip and let it go. If you go to the lower end, that means you've actually mitigated really to the utmost. So what I like to do as a scientist, a physician, a public health official, is to not ignore models, but say, look at the data as it's evolving and do everything you possibly can to mitigate that instead of getting overly anxious about the extremes of the model. Again, not to push them aside completely, but the reason the president made the announcement today about going to the end of April is because we want to make sure that we don't prematurely think we're doing so great. We may be, but we want to push it to the extreme. So take that with you, and maybe you'll be less anxious. Okay.
President, on behalf of the foreign pool, sir, you mentioned Italy.
Just to finish with,
sure.
So what both were saying and what Dr. Fauci just brought up, we don't want to do well and then end a little bit early and have it start going up again, because that would be a disaster. Go ahead, please.
You mentioned Italy. Italy is a close ally of the United States. They are facing catastrophic times.
Yes.
They have been receiving help from countries like Russia, China, even Cuba. Cuban doctors have been sent to Italy. Is the United States stepping in to help a close ally like Italy?
Met last night with our people. We're sending them a lot of different things that we're not needing because we're obviously in need of a lot also. And we're also helping them monetarily. We are helping Italy a lot. We're working very closely with Italy, and we're working closely with Spain too, which is really hit hard. And we're working with everybody. I spoke with Angela Merkel the other day. Germany's hit hard. Their mortality rate is different, I think, because they do more testing. But their mortality rate is much different. Italy's mortality rate is very high. So is Spain. But we're working very closely with them. Yes, we had a big meeting on it last night. Admiral Giroux, would you please come up and just talk a little bit about the tremendous success that's been made on testing from where we started? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So as of close of business yesterday, we have been able to perform in the United States over 894,000 tests, so highly significantly increased every single day. Those tests are performed at a number of places, in hospitals, in your neighborhood, in the public health laboratories, the state public health laboratories and in our territories, as well as the large reference laboratories that are members of the American Clinical Laboratory Association. They have done over 650,000 tests, including over 840,000 just yesterday. I met with all their CEOs yesterday. They're fully committed to increasing testing to meet the requests and the demands of the President and Vice President. A couple words on the point of care test. Point of care means you stop, you get the result right there that the President and the Vice President of the Cepheid test that we announced about a week ago. We also have moderate platforms, so it's not just about the number, it's the type. We have point of care. We have moderate platforms that are in hospitals and in larger clinics and academic medical centers. And then we have the very large test. You've heard Ambassador Birx talk about the Roche tests and the Roche platforms that are in some of these big reference laboratories. So it's not just about the number, but it's about painting this very complex ecosystem so that everybody who needs a test can get a test. On priorities, remember, we are still prioritizing those in most need, those who are in hospitals or in ICUs, because that test makes a difference to how they're being treated. Symptomatic first responders, healthcare workers, and as Administrator Verma will always say, those in long-term care facilities who are at high risk. One last point. I've learned more about nasal swabs than I ever thought I would want to learn in my entire life. But it was a very big thing that the FDA approved last week, and it will now be implemented this week. Instead of having a provider stick this all the way in the back of your nose, that's uncomfortable, but it also requires PPE changes every time it's done. The FDA approved, with lots of data supporting it, self-swab of your nose. So literally put a swab, certain kind of swab, foam swab in your nose, put it in a plastic bag, give it in and drop it. This not only increases the speed, but it eliminates all those changes of PPE. So we will be implementing that this week, which will increase speed, but also save our precious resources as we build them up in the stockpile and out to hospitals. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Admiral, very much. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, you mentioned that the peak could come in 2 weeks. Can you ensure that everyone that needs a ventilator, every single patient that needs one will get one? Will it get there in time? And my second question is, after invoking the Defense Production Act yesterday with GM, you said that there were a couple of problem children that may require using your authority again. What are those companies and what aren't they meeting?
Well, I don't have to tell you because those companies have come into line. They're doing a great job. They're working very hard, 24 hours round the clock. So I don't want to give their names now because they are, they've been great. They've come into line. And by the way, General Motors is doing a fantastic job. I don't think we have to worry about General Motors now. They've really done a job. And what the Admiral said also, I think we can add this, Admiral, the reason we show more cases than anybody else in the world is we're doing more testing than anybody else in the world. So we have more cases because we're doing far more testing than anybody in the world. And remember, we started with a system that was broken. For many years it was broken. And I'm not blaming the last administration. I'm saying other administrations. And our pipeline had very little in it. Just like we had no ammunition, we had very little medical. We had very little in our pipeline. Now we have ammunition, more than hopefully we'll ever need. And we also have a pipeline that's packed. And now we have those 10,000 ventilators that we can use because you need some quickly. I mean, this goes quickly from place to place. I'd love to give them all out right now, but we need them quickly. I don't want to give them out and then we have to take them back and move them someplace else. So we're very much prepared. Please.
Mr. President, states like Florida have reportedly had 100% of their requests for supplies from the National Strategic Stockpile filled, but other states like Massachusetts have not. So how is that assessment being made, and why has Florida gotten its request
Well,
fulfilled?
I think you're going to find that almost all states, look, I was on the call yesterday with the governors, and they were happy with the job we're doing. And I'll tell you what, if you had a different administration, they would not have been happy. These are people that speak their mind. They were happy. It was falsely reported by a couple of people that, oh, gee, they weren't. They were happy. They were thrilled. Florida has been taken care of, and Michigan has been taken care of. Very important state. To me, it's very important because I'm so proud of what we've done bringing car companies back into Michigan. And we're now dealing with the governor, and I think, Mike, I can say that a lot of good things are happening in Michigan. Massachusetts, we're dealing with the governor very strongly, and we're trying to get things to Massachusetts as rapidly as possible.
But why has Florida received 100% of its requests compared to some other states? Is there a reason?
Well, Florida, look, they're very aggressive in trying to get things, and they're doing a very good job. But I think I can say all of the governors are very committed. We're very committed. We're working together. and we're getting things out at a level that nobody's ever seen before. You can speak to FedEx, you can speak to UPS, they've never done anything like this, that what they're doing right now. And nobody in the world has been able to match what these great companies have been able to do. If we left that to government, it would have been a tough thing. We have mobilized private enterprise. We have mobilized the greatest companies in the world. And what's happening is incredible. And that includes Abbott, where Abbott comes out and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes up with this incredible test that simplifies everything and makes it so easy. So I think you're going to find most states are very happy. I'm dealing with the governor of Louisiana, John Bel Edwards. He's a Democrat, if that's what you're getting at. But I'm dealing with him very successfully. I think he's very happy. I think he's actually amazed at what he's been able to get. In fact, we were even forward thinking. I suggested we send additional ventilators and other things. We're building a hospital in Louisiana, very importantly. We're building hospitals in New Jersey. Governor Murphy of New Jersey is a terrific guy, and frankly, he wants, he's got a pretty hot spot right there, right next to New York. And we're doing hospitals, we're doing ventilators, we're getting a lot to Governor Murphy. That's New Jersey. Last night I spoke to the governor of Connecticut. We had a great talk with him. We are really doing a job. Look, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, he's been terrific. We sent him a boat way ahead of schedule, the ship way ahead of schedule, hospital ship, the Mercy, with 1,000 beds, operating rooms, and it's been in LA for 3 days already. So I think they're really happy. And when you think about it, in New York, we built 2,900 hospital rooms, beds. Nobody's ever seen it before. The governor's never seen anything like that before. This was done by federal government, not by state government. This was done by the federal government. They're opening it tomorrow. I wanted to be there so badly, but Secret Service and all of the people involved won't let me. They won't let me. I would love to be there, but they won't let me for obvious reasons. But I would have loved to have been at the opening tomorrow of the hospital in New York, Javits Center. But we're very proud of the job we've done. We've mobilized and getting better and better every day. And the task force headed by your vice president, the job they've done, and they don't even sleep. Okay, any other questions?
Sir, may I just follow up on your letter to the governors that you sent, since we were on the topic of governors? You sent a letter to governors at the end of the week saying that you guys are going to be developing criteria to be able to classify counties based on whether they were hotspots or whatnot. And I wanted to know if you have enough tests currently to be able to accurately rank those counties.
Yeah, we're ranking counties and we're ranking states. And a lot of people put out false information because they don't know what they're talking about. And we took over a dead, barren system. We took over a system that was obsolete. It was good for a tiny little sample of people. And even that didn't work, because when CDC first looked at their test, the biggest problem they had is the test didn't work. That wasn't from us. That's been there a long time. Now we have the best tests in the world, and nobody has. Now they're all calling, can we get the quick test? We call it the quick test, where, by the way, probably more accurate, and it takes a few minutes. I mean, it's pretty amazing what we've done. No, we're getting along great with the governors. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, sir.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you more specifically about the strategy that you plan to unveil on Tuesday. What factors are you taking into consideration? What can the American people expect? And is it possible that these April 30th guidelines could be extended?
Well, we hope not, but we think it's going to, we have aspirational thoughts. We would have loved to have been a little bit sooner, but we have to do it right. We could have done it. We could have done it on Easter, but there was a good chance that if it's coming down or if it's still going up, maybe it's going to be coming down by that, but we just felt it was too soon. We can't take a chance. Again, because of what we've done and because of the fact that we've stopped the flow from China so early, because the question is from a lot of my friends, why don't we just wing it? Why didn't we just wing it? And I kept asking, and we did models now. Finally, we got these models in. And you hear about the 2.2 million people would have died. I don't mean we would have had 2.2 million cases. These are 2.2 million people would have died. 2.2 million people. Look, we're going to have a meeting or speech or press conference or something on Tuesday. I thought what I do, I was going to announce the end of April on Tuesday, but I said, let's do it now, because somewhere along the line it's going to leak. We might as well just do it now and get rid of all the leaks. This way it didn't, nice and clean. But we have to really do a great job for another couple of weeks. And I think we're going to be in great shape. And we're going to be in a position, even with what we're trying to do with restaurants, with deductibility, we have to get these restaurants back in. We have to get our businesses open. We have to get the planes flying. We have to get everything going. We have to get even the cruise ships. I mean, we have to get those cruise ships moving along. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world 3 weeks ago. And now we've said, please don't work anymore. We're actually paying people not to work. Nobody's ever heard that. That's not for us. People want to work. But at the same time, and I'm so glad that Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx gave us a number. And the number on the outside, and maybe it's not even on the outside, we don't know, is 2.2 million people would have died if we didn't do what we're doing. And now we're looking at numbers that are going to be much, much, much lower than that. And it makes everything we're doing feel much better to me. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I do have a question for you, but I'd like to let my colleague Gimish finish her second question, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jeremy.
I was going to call on you next. You know that.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've also said that at one point that you thought more people might die from the economic tragedies and the economic problems in America due to the coronavirus outbreak. What health officials are telling you that? And Dr. Fauci, could you speak to that, the idea that there might be mental health and suicide related to this? Would that outpace at some point the virus's impact on this society?
Well, I could ask Dr. Fauci to come up, but it's common sense. You're going to have massive depression, meaning mental depression. You're going to have depression in the economy also, but you're going to have mental depression for people. You're going to have large numbers of suicides. Take a look at what happens in a really horrible recession or worse. So you're going to have tremendous suicides, but you know what you're going to have more than anything else? Drug addiction. You will see drugs being used like nobody's ever used them before, and people are going to be dying all over the place from drug addiction, because you would have people that had a wonderful job at a restaurant or even owned a restaurant. I spoke to great people today that have done a great job, and one day they're at the top of their business. They're celebrity chefs. They've got the most successful restaurants, and in one day they have nothing. They've gotten wiped out. One day from our enemy, this invisible, horrible scourge. So when you ask me that, it's so easy to figure that. I mean, massive drug use, massive depression, mental depression, massive numbers of suicide. Anxiety causes, disease, they say. A lot of people, you're going to have tremendous. And hopefully we're not going to have that, because hopefully by what we're doing, we get the best of both worlds. We don't have 2.2 million deaths. We have a number that's much less, much, much less. And at the same time, we get our country running again. Please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You were next. He was very nice in doing it, though, nevertheless. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Which is unusual for CNN.
Two quick questions. First of all, during this 30-day additional period, do you anticipate at all relaxing those restrictions by region during these additional 30 days?
I don't think so. It's a great question, actually. I don't think so. And I asked that the same. I said, how about Nebraska? How about Idaho? How about Iowa? And you know what? Those people are so great, the whole Midwest. I don't think they want to be in that position, actually. And probably, I was given a pretty strong look by these two people. They said, we don't like that idea. So, we're relying on them. They're the best in their profession, and they didn't like the idea.
And secondly, sir, I want to ask you about some comments.
And we could do it, but I don't think it would be good.
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to ask you about some comments you made on Friday. You were talking about governors of different states, and you said, I want them to be appreciative. You also said, if they don't treat you right, I don't call. These are direct quotes, sir.
Excuse me. Ready? Take a look at what I said. I want them to be appreciative of me, okay? And then you cut it off because it's fake news.
You and of your administration,
Listen,
absolutely.
Please, let me just finish. You just said it again, and the answer's a lie.
I could read you your full comments, sir,
let me
if
just
that
say,
would be easier.
Your statement and your response and your answer is a lie, because here's the story. You ready? I said, I want you to be appreciative of me, and then you go on, and then I go on, and you cut it off. But it says
You said,
because
I
when
want
you're
them to be
not,
appreciative. I don't want them to say things that aren't true. I want them to be appreciative. We've done a great job. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Mike Pence, the task force. I'm talking about
Thank
FEMA,
you.
the Army Corps of Engineers.
Thank you.
But then you went on to say, if they don't treat you right, I don't call. He's a different type of person.
I don't
you
call.
Said, referring to
no,
the
I
vice
don't
president.
call. No, I don't call the governor of Washington
why in
now.
this time?
But Mike Pence calls, and the head of FEMA calls. I don't stop them. Did I ever ask you to do anything negative, Mike, to Washington, the state of Washington? Michigan, I love that state. That's one of my favorite places in the whole world, Michigan. And I'm so proud of what's happened with the auto industry. It's coming back to Michigan. No, I don't have to call because I'm probably better off not, because we don't get, he's a failed presidential candidate. He's a nasty person. I don't like the governor of Washington. So you know who calls? I get Mike Pence to call. I get the head of FEMA to call. I get the admiral to call. But what you didn't say, see, you started it off and you talked about, I have to be appreciated. But then, when you read the rest, it said, because if you don't appreciate, you're not respecting these incredible people, the two admirals, you're not appreciating FEMA and the Army Corps of Engineers who built 2,900 beds in 3.5 days, and you're not appreciating all of the work that's been done, and you're not appreciating these incredible people from private enterprise that are delivering things in numbers that nobody's ever seen. See, and that's why people aren't watching CNN very much anymore. That's why they don't like it. That's why your ratings are no good. Because you, even after knowing the truth for days now, you bring up the old lie. Read the rest of your question, the rest of your statement, you didn't put in. You have to put that in. And it said in there, FEMA, and it said in there, Army Corps of Engineers, because when they disrespect me, they're disrespecting our government. And you know what? I don't mind if I'm disrespected, but they can't disrespect the Army Corps of Engineers and FEMA. Okay.
Why is a lack of appreciation?
Please go ahead. I want them to appreciate the incredible job we're doing. We are doing a job the likes of which has never been done before. And there are a couple of people that know that. But for political reasons, let's say they're Democrats. They don't want to give this administration credit, and that's okay. But I don't have to deal with them. But our vice president does deal with them. Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr.
But that's
President.
why CNN is not trusted anymore. They are not trusted. They are fake news. Remember that. Go ahead. Yes, you are. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about the extension of the CDC guidelines you've announced today through the end of next month. And of course, you know that there have been shelter-in-place orders that have been imposed by governors and mayors all throughout the country. And when you take that all into account, it sounds like, and it seems like you've acknowledged that America essentially will be shut down for the next few weeks, maybe even the next 2 months. You mentioned June 1st as a date in which you'd like America
No, we think it's going to really start to open up. We think that that's going to be the bottom of the hill. That's where we're looking at, June 1st, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. So we have this hill. If we did nothing, the hill would have been up here. We did a lot. We did just about maximum. And we got lucky because we stopped China from coming in, and then later on we stopped Europe from, we got lucky. We got very lucky. The people that were coming in here, they went to Italy, they went to Spain, they went to other countries. We got lucky, and they got unlucky, to be honest with you. You look at what's going on in Italy and Spain in particular. So, no, I don't want that. June 1st, we think we can reach the bottom of that hill on June 1st, and that would be a great thing. And I have confidence in the two doctors. I think that that could be a date. It could even be sooner. Could be a little bit later. It could be sooner. But I think people would be very happy if we did a job and saved potentially millions of lives. I think people would be very happy with that date.
My question, sir, actually has
yes, please, go ahead,
Mr.
please.
President, my question actually has to do with the $2.2 trillion relief bill that you signed into law. In your view, do you think that another relief bill, another phase bill, may be necessary? And are you prepared to support that, Mr. President?
Well, I'm prepared to do whatever is necessary to, number one, save lives, and number two, bring our economy back strong just like it was before. I think our economy has a chance to be just as good and even better than it was before. And remember, a lot of the money that you read about, that's all coming back. These are loans to great companies that got stopped from doing business. They'll be back very soon. So much of the money that we're talking about, that money's coming back. And we'll take warrants, meaning we'll take pieces of the company for the taxpayers of our nation. I expect that we'll make a lot of money with that money. We're going to make a lot of money, and that's okay. I don't even want to talk about making money, because what I want to talk about is two things. Number one is saving lives, and number two is bringing our economy back, okay? But I think we're going to do very well. That whole money, a lot of it's coming back. Please.
Mr. President, thank you. Earlier this afternoon, you had tweeted that there are on average 8.5 million Americans tuned into these daily press briefings. Yet there are some networks out there that are, concerned about taking these briefings.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. No, I've read that.
What do you say to
Well,
these
I've read that
detractors?
CNN doesn't want to cover them. I've read that, except they can't help them because the ratings are so high. If the ratings were low, they wouldn't be here. This man wouldn't be here. In 100 years, you could bet your life that he would never be here with CNN and all their cameras if they're bad, because we help their ratings. We lift up their ratings because their ratings are very low. But for the most part, I haven't heard that. I will say the Washington Post has a drive on not to go to the President of the United States news conference because, frankly, so many people are watching. We're getting the word out. We're getting the accurate word out. And a lot of people are happy about it, and a lot of people aren't. But they should be happy. When I have the general, when I have Seema, and when I have Tony, and when I have our incredible, these are all like people that have become big stars, okay? But they've done a great job. But Deborah has done a fantastic, all of these people, they don't want to be stars. You know what they want? They want to win. They want to win the battle against the virus. They've been fighting this stuff their whole life. Between Ebola and swine flu and I don't know, I'm not sure I'd love your life, but that's what you like, right? That's what they do. They fight disease. And you know what? There's nobody that does it better. But I think the American public, ultimately, they should be the decider. It's like if they don't want to watch, they shouldn't watch. And we shouldn't have bigger ratings than The Bachelor or, as the New York Times said, we have Monday Night Football type ratings. Now, I didn't say that. I have no idea what they are, in a sense, but I know that the Times, they say it's all the news that's fit to print. I say it's all the news that's not fit to print because I think they are not honest people. But that's okay. But they can't help it. But even they said that the ratings are like Monday Night Football ratings and that these are like Bachelor finale. That's their end. When the big deal happened, I have no idea what happened because I'm too busy working on this. Somebody will tell me what happened. So, no, I think it's terrible. When they don't want the President of the United States to have a voice, you're not talking about democracy any longer. Please. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. President. You've talked a lot about concerns about leaving the economy for so long. Was there any dissent from your top economic advisors in your decision to leave the guidelines in place until the end of April?
No, and this is before we heard the 2.2 million people. I mean, we had a lot of people who were saying maybe we shouldn't do anything, just ride it. They say ride it like a cowboy. Just ride it, ride that sucker right through. That's where the 2.2 million people come in. Would have died, maybe, but it would have been 1.6 to 2.2. And that's not acceptable. But there were a lot of people that said, I thought about it. I said, maybe we should ride it through. You know, you always hear about the flu. I talk about it all the time. We had a bad flu season. We're in the midst of a bad flu season. You know, we had a bad season last year, as an example, a bad flu season. And you'll have 35, 36, 37,000 people die, sometimes more, sometimes less. But this is different. And part of this is the unknown. And part of it also is the viciousness of it. I had a friend who went to a hospital the other day. He's a little older and he's heavy, but he's a tough person. And he went to the hospital and a day later he's in a coma. I go, how's he doing? Sir, he's in a coma. He's unconscious. He's not doing well. The speed and the viciousness, especially if it gets the right person, it's horrible. It's really horrible. Please, go ahead.
Mr. President, this may be good for some of the advisors as well. We've heard some rumors that Louisiana is really going to get hit hard next because there's a possibility with Mardi Gras. Have you guys seen any data to back that up of what happened a few weeks ago and whether or not that's contributing to the spike in Louisiana?
I don't think it's a rumor. I think it's a fact. And Louisiana's been hit hard. And Louisiana is an example. It started off with like nobody for so long. When I spoke to the governor. But Deborah or Tony, either of you, if you'd like to talk.
You know, I think you heard us talk about a week ago that we were very worried about the numbers and how they were increasing in Louisiana, how they were increasing in Cook County, how they were increasing in Dearborn and Detroit. And I think those are areas that we're still watching very carefully. And like the President said, when people get this virus, some people do very poorly. And when certain metro areas get exposed to the virus, we see this really very rapid expansion of the virus. We think it may have been circulating there for, a couple of weeks. I don't like to look backwards. I only like to look forwards, and really we are putting all of our effort into ensuring that the people of New Orleans, the people of the Detroit region, frankly, the people of New York. I mean, some of the fastest growing counties are not New York itself, New York City. When you look at it per 100,000, it's Rockland, it's Bergen. So, I mean, all of these places are people that have transited through cities, and that's why we really did want the travel advisory, just to really warn people to watch out for their own health, to really take their temperatures. And so it can go from 50, 100, 500 cases, and the next thing you know, it's 2,000, it's 4,000, it's 10,000. And because it then gets across all communities, people get very sick.
You know, you made the comment about New Orleans. This can happen anywhere, and that's really one of the issues that we're concerned about, and why we were so reluctant to pull back at a time when we need to put our foot on the gas as opposed to on the brake. And as what Dr. Berg said, this is exactly what you see. There are a number of communities, cities, states, what have you out there, in which they're trickling along like that. Don't get complacent about that, because that's exactly the way the virus works. It goes like this, then like this, and then it goes up like that. That's exactly what happened in New Orleans. That's what happened in a terrible way with New York. That's what we're trying to avoid in multiple locations throughout the country. So we shouldn't take any solace when we see low levels in different states, different cities, different areas, because they're very vulnerable to an explosion.
And Mr. President, last question for me, sir. Just real quick, I asked the Vice President a week ago, and I think we talked about it last week as well. You took the test that first time, I remember that, and I think you took it last week, Mr. Vice President. Have you had a chance to take it again? Does it get easier the second time around? Do you feel, how are you feeling? Yeah.
I think I'm waiting for that little 45-minute test. I sort of like that, or now it's down to 5 minutes, I understand. But no, I haven't, but I think I will take it again if it's appropriate. I don't feel there's any symptoms. I don't notice, have you noticed any sniffles? Nothing, right? So far I haven't felt that way, but there was a big, strong point made originally. I think it still holds. Take the test if you need it, if you have the symptoms. If you don't take it. That's put out by the professionals, so I don't have it, but I would take it. I just wanted to say one thing also about what Tony had mentioned. So I grew up in Queens, New York, and right next to a place called Elmhurst, Queens, and they have a hospital that's a very good hospital, Elmhurst Hospital, right? I've known it. I've known where it is. I can tell you the color on the outside, the size of the windows. I mean, I know it very well, right? I was near my community where I lived. And I've been watching that for the last week on television. Body bags all over in hallways. I've been watching them bring in trailer trucks, freezer trucks. They're freezer trucks because they can't handle the bodies. There's so many of them. This is essentially in my community, in Queens, New York. I've seen things that I've never seen before. I mean, I've seen them, but I've seen them on television in faraway lands. I've never seen them in our country. Elmhurst Hospital, unbelievable people. I mean, when I see the trucks pull up to take out bodies, and these are trucks that are as long as the Rose Garden, and they're pulling up to take out bodies, and you look inside and you see the black body bags. You say, what's in there? It's Elmhurst Hospital. Must be supplies. It's not supplies, it's people. I've never seen anything like it. So these people are doing a fantastic job, and somebody else who's doing a fantastic job is sitting here, who is the head of the task force. And I just maybe want to finish off because I'd like to ask Mike, what do you think about what we've done, and where do you think we're going, and how do you feel also, and you've studied this so closely, how do you feel about the curve and the June 1st date, and that's aspirational, but I think that's really modified aspirational, because I think we're going to hit it, and maybe we'll even beat it. Okay, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, and let me just join you in thanking the American people for the efforts that the people of this nation have made over the past 15 days, and that we know they will continue to make over the next 30. You heard the President speak today about the modeling, and on Tuesday he will share with the nation the full range of counsel of the team that he assembled now months ago at the White House Coronavirus Task Force. We'll lay out to the country what could have been, but what we're continuing to work to make a reality. But in the meantime, I think every American should have a grateful heart. First and foremost, all the incredible healthcare workers that are on the front lines at places like Elmhurst and elsewhere every single day. As Dr. Burke said, getting just a few hours of sleep and going right back into work. I mean, they are the hands and feet of American compassion. And I want to say, on behalf of your president and on behalf of a grateful nation, that we're with you. We're going to continue to work tirelessly with these outstanding leaders at FEMA to make sure that you have the protective equipment to be able to do your job safely and go home to your family. We're going to continue to work with these incredible distributors. Literally, the aircraft that landed at JFK this morning is the first of 51 aircraft that are going to be coming in from around the world, and it's all headed to support our healthcare workers and people that are on the front lines. But also, Mr. President, I want to say thank you to American businesses whose generosity is shining forth every day. The two insurance companies that you mentioned have waived co-pays and are providing full coronavirus coverage to Americans for the full treatment that people that are enduring this virus are experiencing. But American businesses like those so well represented here are stepping up every day with what the President likes to call a spirit, the likes of which we haven't seen for quite a while in this country. And it's truly inspiring. I also want to join your words about this team that you've assembled, not only the healthcare team, the extraordinary team at FEMA and HHS, but all of our partners at the state and local level and the work that they're doing. Mr. President, when you tapped me to do this 5 weeks ago, you said, I want a full partnership with our states. I want to make sure the federal government is there working with our governors and all the local health officials, and to all of you who are managing your states, to all of you that are implementing those healthcare policies on the local level, you have our admiration and our commitment to continue to be with you. And I think what the President laid out today, while it is, I'm sure, for many Americans that were hoping we would be with this sooner, there may be a modest sense of frustration and disappointment. But what I hear, speaking to these healthcare experts, is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And that as the American people continue to put into practice the President's coronavirus guidelines for America, as each one of us continues to do our part, social distancing, avoiding groups of more than 10, using a drive-through at local restaurants, avoiding unnecessary travel, as every American continues to listen to your state and local leaders, to heed that domestic travel advisory that the CDC issued on Saturday night. We're going to hasten the day that we get to the other side of this, as the President said, and that we truly do believe that while there are challenges in the weeks ahead, there is hope that as every American continues to put these guidelines into practice, as every single one of us continues to do our part, that we'll get through this. I mean, when the American people know how tall the hill is, Mr. President, we've never failed to get over it, and then some. And I think with your leadership, with this extraordinary team that you've assembled, with the great leadership that we have at state and local levels, the partnership with American businesses, and the can-do spirit of the American people, we'll get through this, and we'll get through this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. So I just want to end by saying that we're all in this together, all of us. I have never seen anything like it. The unity, the esprit de corps, the spirit, I've never seen anything like it. It's a beautiful thing to watch. Unfortunately, the enemy is death. It's death. A lot of people are dying. So it's very unpleasant. It's a very unpleasant thing to go through. But the level of competence, the level of caring, the level of love, I just think it's brilliant. And it's possibly happening in other countries. Possibly, I don't know. I can't speak to other countries, but I can speak to the United States of America. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I am very proud to be your president. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.